Good morning, everyone.
In unison, good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Mesereau?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
In unison, good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I summed up for you a history of con artists, actors and liars in the Arvizo family. I talked about welfare fraud. I talked about perjury. I talked about the J.C. Penney case. I talked about fake disability claims, fake food stamp claims, fake unemployment claims, signing documents under penalty of perjury that are false. I talked about fake bank accounts. I talked about Janet Arvizo putting her children on stage to do plays about their poverty. I talked about Gavin being an actor. Chris Tucker telling you that he was cunning and smart, that he didn't trust him, that he warned Michael Jackson, stay away. Something is wrong with these people. And unfortunately, Michael didn't listen. With respect to the issue of actors, please consider, additionally, the following. Gavin Arvizo testified that when he went to Neverland to do the Bashir documentary, he thought it was an audition. Janet Arvizo in the rebuttal video testified her children wanted to be in movies. There is evidence that Star wanted to be in a documentary, and that's why Michael Jackson did the Neverland documentary that Star narrated. These people wanted to be actors. They wanted to be around celebrities. They are actors. And paralegal Mary Holzer told you that Janet admitted to her that Gavin knew his lines, Star had trouble, and she was coaching these kids in the J.C. Penney case. I told you that the J.C. Penney case had two primary players, Janet and Gavin. It began with Gavin shoplifting, and his testimony under oath at a very young age buttressed Janet's fraudulent claims. You can't just look at the Arvizo family in terms of Janet's misdeeds. You've got to look at the whole group. You've got to look at broad scams. David, as I said yesterday, was more like a bull in a china shop. He just comes out and says, "Give me money." Janet's much more sophisticated. She gets to know you. She hugs you. She loves you. You're part of her family. And then she tells you a tale of woe and she gets money. Hamid was the classic example. She tells him her tales of woe, and he writes her a $2,000 check, and he hardly knows her. Now, Mr. Zonin yesterday made a broad statement to you, and you have to take his broad statements and put them under a microscope in the jury room. He said, Michael Jackson shows adult material to kids. My question to you is, who? Macaulay Culkin never said he showed him anything. Wade Robson never said he showed him anything. Brett Barnes never said he showed him anything. Jordy Chandler didn't testify. And even Jason Francia, who said he was improperly tickled, never testified that Mr. Jackson showed him any adult material. The only people who have come before you to say they were shown adult material by Mr. Jackson are con artists, actors and liars. And the only forensic evidence they had to hang their hat on are fingerprints on some girly magazines that were owned by Michael Jackson. And you know that everywhere the Arvizo children went, they would rummage through drawers, rummage through the house. They did it at the dentist's office. They did it in Vernie Watson Johnson's home. This is the way they behave. And unfortunately, Michael was rather lax and generous, as Kiki Fournier said, too generous in letting people run through his room, run through his house, run through Neverland. And he's paying a price for it right now. But it's not a crime. There is a piece of evidence lacking in the prosecution's case that is very significant, particularly with allegations like this. And let me explain what I'm talking about. Typically, in a sex crimes type investigation, and let's face it, in this case, you've had at least 70 officers running everywhere trying to find anything they can on Michael Jackson because he's a mega celebrity. But typically in this kind of investigation, you have what is called a pretext phone call. Typically, the police will get the alleged victim, they will sit with the alleged victim, and they will talk about making a phone call to the person who's suspected of committing the crime. And I'm sure you're familiar with this from television. They will make the phone call. The so-called victim makes the call, and the so-called victim is told to ask certain questions that are incriminating in nature. For example, Gavin could have called Michael Jackson and said, "Why did you improperly touch me? Why did you do that to me in bed? Why did you touch me that day we were together? Why? When we were in the wine cellar drinking, did you do this or do that?" And typically the police are listening in, and they're recording it, and that becomes their primary evidence. Now, particularly in a case like this, where you have no independent witnesses, with credibility, watching the alleged molestation, and you have no forensic evidence to support it, you would think, if they did anything, it would have been a phone call like that. You know why they didn't do it? Look at that police interview. Gavin refuses. Doesn't want to make a call to Michael Jackson. And Gavin is someone who has been schooled by his parents to very effortlessly call celebrities, one after another, after another, after another. He's not shy about phone calls. He's not shy about contacting Jay Leno, Chris Tucker, Michael Jackson, Sully McCullough, you name it. Why no recorded phone conversation with an incriminating statement from Michael Jackson? Because he knew if he did that, he wouldn't get an incriminating statement, because it didn't happen. Now, they'll probably tell you he was terrified, he was scared, he was traumatized to be on the phone. That's a bunch of baloney. I'm going to show you Gavin testified on the witness stand that Michael is a nice person, even in this courtroom. He's not afraid of Michael. He's angry that Michael abandoned his family and didn't take care of them for the rest of their life. And as I said yesterday, they put demeanor in issue. The only time you ever saw him get angry was when we talked about what Michael really had done for he and his family and what had happened. And his anger came out when he made the false statement that Michael had done nothing for his family. Remember, he started using this scripted phrase, in my 11-year-old mind, I believed George Lopez had done more, because he went to the hospital and bought me clothes. In my 11-year-old mind, I thought others had done more because they were at the hospital. In my 11-year-old mind, Michael Jackson hadn't done much for me at all. And I went through all the things he had done. The visits to Neverland, the plane flights, the hotel, the truck, all the blood drives, you name it. The gifts, the watch, the jacket. I've probably forgotten half of them. Michael did all sorts of things for this family. The problem was, they wanted it to continue, and they realized at some point it would not continue. Michael was not going to be their benefactor for the rest of their life, and that's when all the trouble started. In that police interview, where the prosecution says you watch the demeanor of a victim, you see a victim of molestation act in an inappropriate way, the way you would expect, you will also see someone who's an actor. You see someone who is acting. And you see someone who's hesitant about condemning Michael Jackson, who fundamentally he likes, because he said he liked him right on the witness stand. I'm going to show you. So you've got to look at that tape with skepticism. You've got to look at it and be very careful with what conclusions you draw, because as I said before, Mr. Robel had already decided he wanted a criminal case. He already decided the Arvizos were victims. He knew nothing about their background as con artists, actors and liars. I also said to you, when asked, what's a bad thing? Gavin never said, lie. Never said, cheat. Never said, steal. He had to struggle. And he talked about killing people. He talked about breaking things. I went back to the transcript. He talks about breaking a window. He talks about staying awake at night. Now, isn't it normal for a child, when pressed to that extent, tell me something else that's wrong? Tell me something else that's wrong. Tell me something else that's wrong, to say, not tell the truth? To lie. He can't say it, because that's the way he's been raised. And even when he was asked, how did you learn right from wrong? He never really had an answer to that. He said, I kind of figured it out myself. Just look at the tape. Gavin, as Chris Tucker said, cunning, smart. He worried him. And he and Starr tried to make it look as if they were innocent little lambs and Michael taught them everything about sex. They didn't know what an erection was until they met Michael. They didn't know what ejaculation was until they met Michael. It's all Michael, Michael, Michael. And I said yesterday, if you convict him of anything, they are going to be multimillionaires through attorneys Feldman and Dickerman. It's all set up. They're just waiting. Waiting to celebrate. Waiting to walk into court. Waiting for the biggest con of their careers, right here. They just need you to help them. That's all. You have to look at the changing stories. You have to look at the inconsistent statements by Gavin and Starr, because they're the only witnesses to this so-called molestation. And as I said to you yesterday, look at that tape. Gavin says he's being molested after they get back from Florida. That only changes when they realize what the import, what the effect of the rebuttal tape and the DCFS interview is, where they praise Michael to the hilt, where they say he's wonderful, he never would touch them. They don't change the dates till they realize they told the social workers, in Jay Jackson's apartment, from the DCFS that they were angry about these accusations. Gavin said he was angry about this claim that Michael had touched him. It's only when they realized what this all does that the dates change. He says in that police interview, I think he touched me 5 times. He says here it was twice. Everything starts changing. And I'm about to show you some transcript testimony of him which I think will raise even more red flags. Q. You went to 2 lawyers and a psychologist, who Larry Feldman referred you to, before you went to any police officer, right? Yes. Now, these weren't the first attorneys you ever talked to, correct? I've talked to other people, other attorneys before. This is a 15-year-old alleged victim whose family has been swimming around lawyers and swimming around manipulations and swimming around false claims for years. Officer Roble said that Gavin told him that his grandmother made the statement of, if men don't masturbate, they'll rape a female. But he came into court and said, Michael Jackson told that to me. He was confronted with that lie. And what was his explanation? Q. But your grandmother said to you, if men don't do it, men might get to a point where they might go ahead and rape a woman, correct? Yes. Michael also told me that. Now, what are the chances of his grandmother and Michael telling him, word for word, that identical statement? He's a liar, he's a perjurer, and that's an excuse. This is where he has the discussion with the teacher, where he says, Michael never touched me, okay? And I want you not just to look at what he says, okay? I want you to envision and recall how he tried to finesse it on the witness stand. Okay. And the purpose of the discussion was what, if you know? A. It was probably about Michael. Q. Okay. You say, probably about Michael. But you're not sure? A. I'm not sure that the whole conversation was about. Okay. But sometime in that conversation, Dean Albert looked at you in the eye and said, are these allegations that Mr. Jackson sexually abused you true, right? And you said they were not true, right? Yeah. I told them that Michael didn't do anything to me. And the second time he asked you, you said to him, no, he did not touch me in any sexually inappropriate way, correct? A. I don't know. You don't know? A. I'm pretty sure I told him that. Okay. But, I mean, I don't know how exactly it happened. That's Gavin, in this courtroom on the witness stand, fudging around, finessing how he's going to handle the fact that he went to a teacher and twice said, Michael Jackson never touched me. Okay. Now, I only put this statement up here because you may recall Devaline got up and said, all my brother ever did in class was talk when he shouldn't have, okay? And what they were trying to do, because they've all been scripted by their attorneys, they want you to think that he's a molestation victim, and suddenly became aggressive, and combative, and had disciplinary problems because of the molestation. And Devaline kept saying, the only problem he had at school was speaking when he shouldn't. We went through a litany of problems with all these teachers. Getting up and singing in the middle of class. Fighting. Remember, he said, one teacher, I lost respect for him. He sunk down to my level. This is a very precocious disciplinary problem. This person Gavin, not the little lamb they want you to think he is. Okay, and in summary, you've had some disciplinary problems with Mr. Gerald, right? A. I had a lot of disciplinary problems. Q. What disciplinary problems did you have? A. I would get into fights sometimes at school. I only put that there because Devaline testified under oath he never got in fights. You know what's interesting? Do you remember? Every Arvizo witness said they've never discussed the case with each other. All these Arvizo witnesses said, we don't talk about Bashir together. And I looked at Devaline and I said, well, how come on that rebuttal video your mother looks at Gavin and says, let's hold hands like you did in Bashir? How could that happen if she didn't look at the Bashir documentary? And she had no answer. Q. Do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs that Michael Jackson first touched you inappropriately during your last days at Neverland? Yes. But hasn't he made statements that he was inappropriately touched right after the Miami trip? When did this change? I just told you when it changed. When they realized that these statements were going to haunt them. Brad Miller, the rebuttal video, and the DCFS interview. Okay. Were you ever personally threatened by anyone associated with Mr. Jackson? No. That's testimony in this courtroom. Look at the police interview they showed you last week. He says Frank said his mother would be killed. He flip-flops all over the place, because he's a liar. Q. Do you recall telling them the following, we didn't drink a lot? A. No. Would it refresh your recollection if I show you a transcript from that interview? Yes. I'm talking about the police interview. Gavin and the Santa Barbara sheriffs. Q. Mr. Arvizo, have you had a chance to look at that page? A. Yes. Q. Does it refresh your recollection about what you told the Santa Barbara sheriffs? A. Not really. Q. You told them, we didn't drink a lot, right? A. I don't know. It says it on there. Didn't he tell you they drank night after night after night? How many lies does this guy have to tell for you to see what's really going on? Q. You initially told them you didn't drink a lot? A. That's true. Q. So you were saying that at different times you gave Mr. Snedden different accounts of when the molestation supposedly happened? Witness. Yes. That's Gavin admitting all the flip-flops, the different stories, the fabrications, the inconsistent ways of describing what happened. He's not truthful. And as I said yesterday, if you don't believe him beyond a reasonable doubt, if you don't believe Star beyond a reasonable doubt, and wait till you see what's coming up on Star, they're out of the box. It's over. Q. Until you realized that you were not going to be part of Michael Jackson's family, you never made any allegation of child molestation, correct? A. I didn't want to be part of his family. I just saw him as a father figure. Q. Until you left Neverland for the last time, you never made any allegation of child molestation, correct? A. I didn't tell anyone until I left for the last time, correct? Q. And you never called the police until after you'd seen 2 lawyers, right? Witness. Yes, it wasn't until I saw 2 lawyers until I told the police what really happened. When you're molested, when your family thinks you're molested, when parents think their child is molested, who do they go to? The police or lawyers? Q. Let me ask you what you're talking about. Do you think when your mother said Michael Jackson was honest and told the truth that she was being truthful? A. Yes. He's a nice man. He said Michael's a nice man right in the courtroom to you under oath. Q. Mr. Arvizo, you were caught masturbating at Neverland when Michael Jackson wasn't even around, weren't you? A. No. Q. You were caught masturbating in a guest quarters, weren't you? A. No. Q. No one ever saw you do that? No. No one ever talked to you about that? No one ever talked to me about it. That's false. Riho didn't come in here and lie under oath. Riho told the truth. Q. Was Riho ever in a guest room with you when you were watching TV at Neverland? A. No. I don't remember really. I mean, I might have hung out with him in a guest room for a minute, but, I don't remember watching TV with him. Lying. You don't? No. Are you saying you don't remember or are you saying it just didn't happen? A. I don't think it happened. Q. Okay. Do you recall ever telling Riho you wanted to look at adult movies on television at Neverland? No. I don't remember that. Ever remember stealing alcohol from Michael Jackson's bedroom when Riho was present? No. Ever remember masturbating in front of Riho? No. Now, earlier in your testimony, you said the only time you ever tasted wine was in church. Do you remember that? Yes. Does anybody believe that? Do you think he never had wine except in church? Based upon what you've seen about this family and what they say, and what they do, and how they change their stories, and how they lie under oath with no respect for the oath whatsoever, do you believe that? Q. Are you telling the jury the only time you tasted wine before you went to Neverland was in a church? Yes. Did you ever tell Riho or anyone else at Neverland that you knew what wine tasted like? No. I don't remember telling them that. Does Riho have a history of fraud and acting and lying? No. Does Gavin Arvizo? You bet. Q. Mr. Arvizo, when you claim you were inappropriately touched by Mr. Jackson, you claim there were no witnesses watching, correct? Yes. And I identified that problem yesterday. You got a lying witness, no independent witness supporting it, and no forensics. And by the way, they want you to think these fingerprints on a couple of magazines are bombshell forensic evidence. What are they evidence of? That he looked at Michael's magazines. Are they evidence of any of these crimes? No. No DNA, no semen, no hair, no fiber. Nothing. Q. Never knew an employee named Shane Meredith at Neverland? A. If I did, I don't remember that. Q. He caught you with an open bottle of alcohol at Neverland, didn't he? When Michael Jackson wasn't even around. A. No. Do you trust him or do you trust Shane Meredith, who was an impeccable witness? He works at Lompoc. He was a truthful witness, and he had no reason to come in and lie. He doesn't even work at Neverland anymore. Q. Do you remember ever telling Chris Tucker that you didn't make any money from the fundraiser? A. No. Well, what fundraising? Look at that. Q. A fundraiser for you at the Laugh Factory. No, because we did make money at the Laugh Factory. Q. Yes. So you never told Chris Tucker, we didn't make any money from the fundraiser. A. Why would I say that when we did? No, I never said that. Okay. Do you recall yourself asking Chris Tucker for money? No. Who do you believe, Chris Tucker or Gavin Arvizo? Why would Chris Tucker come in here to testify and lie? He's one of the most successful actors in the world. He is flying high. He is popular all over the planet. Why does he need to come in here and testify and lie? Do you believe him or do you believe Gavin? Because you got to make a choice. Now, I want you to watch all of this. This is Starr's testimony from the courtroom in front of you, under oath, about these claims. Okay. Before you testified yesterday, had you ever discussed what you were going to say with your mom? No. Before you testified yesterday, had you ever discussed with Gavin what you're going to say? No. Before you testified yesterday, had you ever discussed with your sister Devaline what you were going to say? No. Have you ever discussed this case with your mom? No. Ever discussed this case with Gavin? No. Have you ever discussed this case with Devaline? No. Never discussed it with your mom before you went. This is about the J.C. Penney case, by the way. Never discussed it with your mom before you went into the deposition, right? Yes. Just like you've never discussed the facts of this case with your mom at any time, right? Yes. And didn't you say under oath that your mother and dad never fight? That's in the J.C. Penney deposition. Yes. Was that true? I really don't, sometimes. I'm sorry. I didn't understand your answer. When you told, excuse me, let me rephrase. When you stated under oath in the J.C. Penney deposition in the year 2000 that your mom and dad never fight, were you telling the truth? No. Did someone tell you to lie in that deposition? A. I don't remember. Q. You don't remember at all? No. It happened a long time ago. Now, this kid's lying at the age of what, 9, 10. He never discussed it with his mother? Nobody told him to lie? Nobody told him what the case is about. It starts with him shoplifting. Q. You also said in that deposition, under oath, that your dad never hit you. Do you remember that? A. Not really. Q. Would it refresh your recollection if I show you that page? Sure. You were asked if your dad ever hit you, and you said, never, right? Yes. Was that the truth? No. Did someone ever tell you to lie about that under oath in your deposition in the J.C. Penney case? A. I really don't remember. Q. Don't remember at all? A. No. I don't remember nothing from there. Is he telling you the truth? Do you trust him? Do you trust him beyond a reasonable doubt? Do you trust him to the point where you're going to convict Michael Jackson, take away his freedom and reputation? I don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. These are terrible witnesses. Q. Have your, excuse me. Did your father ever coach you about what to say in the J.C. Penney deposition? No. Did your mother ever coach you about what to say in the J.C. Penney deposition? No. Then who told them to lie? Who told them to lie to get money from J.C. Penney? He's a young kid. Please tell the jury why you lied under oath. I don't remember. It was like 5 years ago. I don't remember nothing. By the way, do you remember yesterday when you told the jury that on that plane you looked at a soda can that Michael Jackson had, and you saw a red ring around it? A. Yes. Remember that testimony? Q. You told that to the police in one of your interviews also, didn't you? I think so. Q. You also told the police that you looked in the can and saw white wine, correct? A. When? Q. When you told them there was a red ring around the can, you then told them that you looked in the can and saw white wine, remember? A. I don't remember saying that. Would it refresh your recollection if I show you a transcript from a police interview? Sure. Look what he says. The lady might have misheard me. Excuse me, what did you just say? A. I never looked into the can. Q. You said a lady might have misheard you? A. I don't know what the court reporter. Yes. Oh, you think the court reporter made a mistake? Yes. Any of you believe that? Q. Do you recall ever being caught in the wine cellar? A. The wine cellar doesn't have a combination lock. Look at that answer. Do you recall ever being caught in the wine cellar drinking wine when Michael Jackson wasn't present? A. Never. Flat out lie. Shane Meredith caught them. Q. Never happened? A. It's always locked, and to unlock it, you need a key. There's no combination to get in there. Let me repeat my question. Do you recall ever being caught in the wine cellar at Neverland with Gavin drinking wine when Michael Jackson wasn't even there? No. Are you saying that never happened? Yes. Do you recall ever being caught at any other location in Neverland drinking wine when Michael Jackson wasn't there? No. And you already heard the witnesses that contradict them. Lies under oath about a fundamental issue in this case. Reasonable doubt all over the place when lying witnesses come in and make these claims. Okay, that never happened? A. Yes. Okay. Now, you just told the jury voluntarily where the key is to get in the wine cellar, right? A. No. I said that the wine cellar needed a key to get in there. And you knew where the key was, correct? I knew it was in the lounge. You knew where it was hanging in the lounge, right? Not exactly. I didn't know where it was hanging. I just knew it was in the lounge. He always has an out. These kids knew exactly how to get in the wine cellar, and they were caught repeatedly all around Neverland getting into everything. Okay, another subject. Had you ever seen any girly magazines in your life before you say Michael Jackson showed them to you? No. Never? Well, I was only like 11 or 12. Weren't you caught at Neverland looking in girly magazines? I said no. No one ever caught you and your brother looking at girly magazines at Neverland? Never. He was caught by Julio Avila with a girly magazine in his backpack and said it was from his own home. Okay. And your testimony is, until you got to Neverland, you and your brother had never looked at girly magazines at any time, is that right? Yes. Flat out lies. Con artists, actors, liars. Look at this. Star's testimony here. You told the police in your first interview you looked at www.pussy.com? No. I was making an example that I was trying to say. That wasn't the exact site. I'm just saying I was just making an example. Okay. You also told the police you might have looked at www.teenpussy.com, right? No, I never said that. You never said that to the sheriffs? Alright, but this is a guy who never learned anything about sex until he met Michael Jackson. You're supposed to buy that beyond a reasonable doubt. This is that stairwell incident, okay? Now, do you remember Gavin said Michael Jackson came out of the bathroom, ran up the stairs, saw the two of them there and ran down and nothing happened? And that's what Mr. Snedden kept trying to get him to say, something bad happened, and he couldn't remember anything bad happening. He said he barely saw Michael Jackson. But this is what Starr says. And you claim you went up the stairwell. Excuse me, this is pardon me. This is when he says he saw molestation. This is when he says he saw molestation, and he's the only witness to it, there's nobody else. And he sees his brother touched in bed, and his brother doesn't know what's going on because he's asleep, remember? And you claim you went up the stairwell and saw Mr. Jackson and your brother on that bed on 2 occasions, right? Yes. You also told the jury that those lights were off, correct? Yes. You told the jury there was a light in the stairwell that was on, but those lights over the bed were off. Yes. You've also told the grand jury that you only watched for a couple seconds. Yes. So those lights are off. A light on the stairwell is on. You see it for a few seconds, and you run, correct? Yes. Okay. Both occasions? Yes. Alright. You have a lying witness. He says there's no lighting in the bedroom. He says it happened for a few seconds, and he ran. Nobody corroborates it, and no forensics prove it. And you're supposed to convict Michael Jackson of serious felonies beyond a reasonable doubt on the basis of this guy alone. It's ridiculous. Q. Do you remember telling the Santa Barbara grand jury when you were asked the question, Starr, while you were at the ranch, did you have any discussions with your mother about the subject of her wanting to leave the ranch? And your answer was, no. I remember her saying it to me. Probably don't even remember. Probably didn't even remember at that time. Would it refresh your recollection if I show you what you told the Santa Barbara grand jury? You told me what I said. Q. Would it refresh your recollection to show you the transcript? Okay. May I approach, Your Honor? And I do. Does it refresh your recollection about what you told the Santa Barbara grand jury under oath? Yes. Your answer to the question was, no, correct? Yes, but probably at the time I didn't remember. At that time you didn't remember? Yes. Probably, yes. Did you ever talk to your brother or sister about leaving the ranch? No. Now, they have this conspiracy claim, which I submit is ridiculous. The mother is claiming she was held against her will. The family was falsely imprisoned. They were extorted. They were abducted. They were kidnapped. It was a conspiracy engineered by Michael Jackson. And Starr tells the grand jury, she never talked about anything like that to me, and then comes into court and tries to tell you the opposite. Why? Do you believe him? Remember this? You don't recall threatening Kiki with a knife when she confronted you in the kitchen? No. Never happened? No. He pulled a knife on Kiki, and he pulled a knife on Angel Vivanco. Lies under oath. Now, Prosecutor Snedden asked you what you meant when you told the grand jury you hadn't seen Michael Jackson touch Gavin's genitals or penis. Do you remember that? Yes. And your response to Mr. Snedden was, well, I was just talking about the dinner table, right? Yes. How come you never mentioned dinner table to the grand jury when you made that statement? I don't know if they asked me. Q. Well, let me just go through what you said, okay. Okay. Q. What kind of things? Fix his shirt. What else? He looked like if you were standing in front him, it looked like he's trying to fix his shirt. He is talking about Michael Jackson. But it's hard to explain. But he would fix it, like he would touch, well, it was weird. He would be touching him a lot? Yeah. Not his genitals, not his penis? I never saw that, but I saw it in the paper. I don't know what I meant by paper, but I was trying to say that I didn't see it that time. But you never mentioned any kitchen table, right? But it wasn't the kitchen table. But you never mentioned any table at all, correct? I know. So he says, I've never seen Michael Jackson touch his genitals or penis. He gets caught. He makes up a story that, I was only talking about the dinner table, and then he contradicts that story. Are you going to believe this guy? Q. And in none of your police interviews do you limit that statement about not seeing genitals or penis touched at any table, right? No. Q. Today is the first time you ever limited that statement to what you saw at a table, correct? I don't. Yes. Q. Now, you've indicated the first time you ever discussed any alleged inappropriate touching by Michael Jackson was with psychologist Stanley Katz, right? Yes. And you have admitted that you gave Stanley Katz a different description than you've given in this courtroom, right? Yes. He admits to inconsistent statements about what happened. And of course he went to Stanley Katz because they first went to Larry Feldman to try and build a molestation case against Michael Jackson, because Larry Feldman had done it many years ago. Now we have Devaline. Okay. Have you discussed what you were going to say in court with your mother? No. Not at all? Not at all. Did you ever discuss what you were going to say before the Santa Barbara grand jury with your mother? Never. Never talked about it once? Never. Did you discuss what you were going to say in court with either of your brothers? No. Just didn't talk to one of them? No. At any time? No. Do you believe any of this? Did you ever discuss what you were going to say before the Santa Barbara grand jury with any of your brothers? No. Not once? Never. Did your mother ever call you to talk about what you were going to say? No. So are you in contact with your brothers? Yes. Regular contact? Of course. Are you in contact with your mother? Of course. Is it regular contact? Yes, of course. And yet during all of this regular contact, nobody has even discussed what was going to happen in this courtroom. What's more important to us is our feelings and if we're okay. That's what's important to us. So no one ever has even discussed it, right? No. Not once? Never. How often do you talk to your mom? Every day. More than, probably like every hour. We talk a lot. Every hour? Yeah. We talk a lot. We're very close. Okay. Would it be accurate to say you talk to her maybe 12 to 15 times a day? Probably a little less, but yeah. Do any of you believe she's never discussed the facts of this case with her mother or her brothers? Do any of you buy that for a second? Does it make any sense whatsoever? It does not. Ever discuss this case with your mother? No. Ever discuss this case with Gavin? No. Ever discuss this case with Star? No. At the home that you share with your mom, Gavin and Star, have you ever seen any documents about this case? No. None? Well, just what was given to us for us to think, but we've never seen them. We just saw what they came in, but we've never read through each other's stuff. Okay, let me just explore that, if I can. You saw documents come in some type of package, is that correct? We all got separate packages, yes. Okay, now, did you testify before that no one in your family watched the Bashir documentary? Yes. Do you recall in the videotape your mother talking about her holding her hand with Gavin like they did in the Bashir documentary? Yes. She must have learned that by watching the Bashir documentary, right? No. Do you believe any of this? Do you know for sure your mother's never seen it? I don't think so. I'm with my mom always. Well, there are times you've lived separately from your mother, right? Yeah. But I would visit almost every day. Have you ever discussed the Bashir documentary with your mom? No. Ever discussed the Bashir documentary with Gavin? No. Ever discussed the Bashir documentary with Star? No. Do any of you believe this? If you lie under oath about something like that, you cannot be trusted. There is a jury instruction about willfully false testimony that I will show you in a little while. It was read to you yesterday by Judge Melville. And it says, basically, someone who will lie about something significant can be totally discounted in a trial. Okay, now, this has to do with the molestation claim that Janet Arvizo made against David Arvizo when she told the police, not initially, that David Arvizo molested Devaline. Okay, But were you present when your mother told the LAPD that your father had molested you? A. No, but I had heard when he had asked her, if you want to get anything off your chest, and she said, yes, and that's when they went to the kitchen area of the East LA apartment. Q. But when you were interviewed by the police, you never told them your father had molested you, did you? A. Because they weren't asking me about that, and I didn't know. I was very young. Okay. Have you ever discussed with your mother what your father did to you? They were both present that day. Okay. She had said, well, I never told Devaline that. And he said, well, she doesn't need to know anyways. It was just a horrible experience for me to find out that he did that to me when I was young. And you found that out through your mother? From both of them, because he had agreed to it when I was standing right there, because they were having an argument, and my mom screamed it out at him. And your father agreed he had done that? Yeah. Do you want a second? I'm fine. I've already told you that Gavin told the DCFS in the 1990s his mother had abused him, so what I'm pointing out to you is, there is a history, proven history, of making molestation and abuse allegations against all kinds of people by this family. We're talking about the Brazil trip. And your position is that you've never told any other witness that your mother wanted to go to Brazil, but your brothers wanted to stay, right? My brothers wanted to stay and be with Michael, yes. Didn't Gavin, in that police interview, say he was scared at Neverland and wanted to leave? He flip-flops all over the place, depending on what he wants to accomplish. Now, before we move further, the photo on your left, that's Janet's booking photo, where she says she was beaten up all over the place by JCPenney guards. That's the booking photo. Look at her face and look at her hair. And you already know that all the booking documents indicate there's no medical problem. There's no injury. She doesn't need medical attention. And Mary Holzer told you that Janet confided in her that after she got released, she was beaten by David before she went to the hospital. And of course they had photos taken weeks later and blamed it all on JCPenney and Tower Records employees to get money. And remember some of the testimony about what's been said about JCPenney. Janet told Asha Pryor some white boys beat them up in the mall. Janet told Mrs. Kennedy that black guys beat them up in an alley. You trust her? Q. You were investigated by the Department of Children and Family Services in the 1990s when Gavin alleged you had abused him. Remember that? Yes, I do. Okay. Did you have a good relationship with the Department of Children and Family Services at that time? Yes, I did. So she confirms Gavin. How old could Gavin have been? He was like a little kid. These kids are being raised to make allegations. Now, I'm not saying that a kid can't make a true allegation. But put it all together. Look what's going on. Allegations come easily and quickly to authorities. Alright, Mr. Zonin talked about Janet's conversations with Frank Tyson. Q. You say here, I know we're family, Frank. Me, you, me, my kids are family. You, Marie Nicole, my kids, baby Rubba are family. Michael, Marie Nicole, Frank Cassio, you, me, our family, and my parents. That's all I got. So that's why when these German people, and then it's inaudible. Do you see that? That's correct. Now, the point I'm making is this. They had decided Michael is their family. And Prosecutor Zonin said to you yesterday, there was a year period where there was no contact between Gavin and Michael, and that's baloney. There were cards going everywhere. Every member of the family is sending cards calling him, Daddy. We love you. We're family. They do this with everybody. They did it with Chris Tucker. You're our brother. We're your family. This is one of their most. And before Janet really starts telling you about her poverty, she tells you you're her family. Now, Mr. Snedden, in his opening statement, tried to neutralize that by saying this is an overly affectionate family. They're affectionate all right. Now, this conversation is taking place after you say you escaped from Neverland with Jesus, true? Correct. You are still calling Michael your family, correct? That's correct. If she had to escape false imprisonment at Neverland, and if Michael is the leader of this big scheme to abduct and kidnap, why is she still calling him family? What is her goal? Her goal is to be with Michael. And all the legal stuff, and all the talk with the police, all of it follows her conclusion, we're out. We're not going to be part of his family anymore. How many times did you escape from Neverland, Miss Arvizo? With Jesus, with Chris, and then the last time, and that's the best I can remember. 3 escapes from Neverland. What does that sound like to you? And they always go back. And in the end, they go home. In the JCPenney case, You waited till after a criminal investigation was over to file your civil claims, true? Doesn't want to answer it. She says, I want an apology. Q. You wanted over 100,000, didn't you? A. I didn't get over 100,000. Q. You got 152,000 in the settlement, Miss Arvizo, didn't you? A. In my hand? I did not get 150,000. Now, look at these answers. The witness. In my hand I received only $32,000. That's it. In my hand. And that's my best approximation. Miss Arvizo. What did Gavin get in his hand from that settlement? A. I don't remember, because it's been put away where it's to be untouched by me. What did Star get in his hand in that settlement? Still nothing. I don't know, because it's something that's untouched by me. It's for them. Do you think she really doesn't know the amounts? She's under oath in this courtroom making these statements. Q. The total was over 152,000 that your family was given in a settlement, true? That you have to ask my civil attorneys. And I think this statement may be correct. Q. During the time you had your deposition taken in the J.C. Penney lawsuit, yes. Did you consider David to be an honest person? No. Do you remember testifying under oath in the J.C. Penney lawsuit that David is extremely honest, he's too honest? A. If that's on there, then that's correct. Whatever is on the deposition is correct. Q. How many lies under oath do you think you told in your depositions in the J.C. Penney case? She was deposed twice. Like I said, I tried, after David was arrested, I went to the Rothstein office, and I pointed out to them prior to a settlement agreement that I would like to correct the statements that were inaccurate, because finally David was arrested. Finally we and my children could speak. And Rothstein, including with Mary Holzer, said, don't worry. We'll take care of it. And they didn't, so I considered their firm liars. She's always blaming someone else. The lawyers are liars. The lawyers made me do it. Has she turned over the money? Has she gone to J.C. Penney or Tower Records and said, what we did was wrong? We lied under oath. We collected money that we are not entitled to. My injuries were fake. I had Gavin lie under oath. I had Star lie under oath. David lied under oath. No. Do you remember in the rebuttal video they talk about gang signs, and she's acting very spontaneously and she's laughing? And it's not a rehearsed, memorized type of response. It's spontaneous, and she's having fun. Q. So when you said about Gavin he was doing gang signs, that was what he was doing. He showed out to his friends on the west side. Was that all scripted? Everything. Everything was scripted. Now, you've seen that video 4 times. Was everything memorized, rehearsed, to the word? Was she ever spontaneous? Did she ever seem to be enjoying herself? Did she seem like she liked being on camera? Remember she looked at it, and she said, oh, my God, we're on camera, and she had a big grin on her face? And now it's part of some evil plot by Michael Jackson. And yet everything they had said before, particularly to Brad Miller, when she says she was talking honestly about Michael Jackson. Everybody's a liar but Janet Arvizo. Have you noticed that? The social workers are liars. The lawyers are liars. Everybody's a liar but her. Did you ever ask Asha Pryor for the keys to Chris Tucker's car? No. To your knowledge, did Devaline ever do that? No. Do you recall ever being in a call with Devaline where you and Devaline asked Asha Pryor for the keys to Chris Tucker's automobile? No. Now Asha's a liar. Do you recall discussing going to Brazil with Asha Pryor? Like I had told you. Remember those conversations that I would have and try to slip something in? So at the end of all of these people could put this puzzle together as to where me and my children were finally at. Do you recall telling Asha Pryor that you were excited to go to Brazil? No. Do you recall inviting Asha Pryor to go to Carnival in Brazil with you? No. Who do you trust based on what you saw on this witness stand? Janet Arvizo or Asha Pryor? Did you ever tell Asha Pryor that your family was being held against their will? She says, yes. When was this? I think it was during the hotel period. That's the best I can remember. I tried to reach different people. Asha Pryor told you that she never said anything like that. She wanted to go to Brazil. That she invited Asha to go to Carnival and that she was excited. And Asha was as honest as you can be. And you specifically remember telling her that you were being held against your will? Yes. Do you remember ever asking her to call the police? No. That was another thing I slipped in. And I was always hoping that these people would call themselves. This way the call didn't come from me. What is that supposed to mean? She's staying at Jay Jackson's. She's in hotels. She's in shopping centers. You can call 911 at Neverland. She has a million different places she can get a phone and call 911 if a crime was being committed against she and her children. The dentist's office, the salon, you name it. Nothing. Q. Do you remember telling Asha prior that you had learned that Michael Jackson was not going on the Brazil trip? A. No. Do you remember ever telling Asha prior that once you learned Michael Jackson was not going on the Brazil trip, you didn't want to go? No. It's your testimony you never discussed the Brazil trip at any time with Asha? Like I said to different people in the midst of the conversation, I tried to slip something in as to what was happening. Do you recall complaining to Asha prior that Michael Jackson was making money on the Maury Povich show and your family was getting nothing? Never. Do you recall commenting to Miss Pryor that a college fund was being set up for Gavin by Michael Jackson? No. Do you remember telling Asha prior, what good will a college fund do for my son? He may not be alive in 10 years? Do you remember saying that? No. All of that. And did you ever discuss the rebuttal video with Asha prior? No. All of that directly contradicted by Asha prior, who, I repeat, was a very honest witness. Are you going to believe Janet or are you going to believe Asha? I think I know who you're going to believe when you put all this stuff together, ladies and gentlemen. She is a complete liar and fabricator. She is a con artist. She's conned people for years. This is a great one. Miss Arvizo, did you ever tell anyone that you were living in a stable with hay and horses in Bakersfield? No. Ever say anything to that effect to anyone? No. Did you ever hear or learn that you were quoted as saying that? Yeah. I came to find out a lot of things. When did you find out that you were quoted as saying that you and your family were so poor you were living in a stable with hay in Bakersfield? Just recently. I've never lived in Bakersfield. Did somebody make that up? Remember, she said she was homeless to get free lessons at the dance school for her kids. She'll say anything. Absolutely anything. You claim you first learned about any alleged molestation in September of 2003, correct? A. I don't understand what he's saying, but I was becoming aware of things through Gavin and Star little by little. Q. You claim that you learned about any alleged molestation in September of 2003 from Prosecutor Sneddon, Sheriff Klapakis and Sheriff Robel, right? Yes. Then my question to you is, why did they go to Larry Feldman? Why? Moving along. Okay. Did you learn at some point about some fundraisers that went on at the Laugh Factory for the benefit of Gavin? A. I came to find out everything afterwards. Q. Did you know those fundraisers were going on when they actually happened? A. I don't think so. We're talking 5 years ago. Do you really think, based on everything you know about Janet Arvizo, that she didn't know fundraisers were going on? This is under oath in front of you. Put it all together. Q. So you're not sure whether you knew they were even going when they happened, right? No. I would find out afterwards. Now, were you in touch with Jamie Masada at this point in time? Just a little bit. They're trying to raise money for her son's illness. They're going everywhere they can to raise money. Do you think she doesn't know? Q. Were you ever standing in the background during a phone call that Gavin made to Jay Leno? A. No. Have you ever spoken to Jay Leno? I've never spoken to Jay Leno. Were you aware of Gavin making any attempt to contact celebrities by phone? No. Do you believe that for a second? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it only takes one lie under oath to throw this case out of court by you. Just one. You can't count the number of lies under oath by all of the Arvizo witnesses. You can't count them. They lie directly. They lie to your face. They lie under oath. They exaggerate. They give runaround answers to try to avoid the question. How many does it take to let you know this case is a fraud? They are trying to take advantage of Michael Jackson. They are trying to profit from Michael Jackson. They think they've pulled it off. They're just waiting for one thing, and that is your verdict. At this point, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some jury instructions. Some of the instructions that were read to you yesterday. Now, we've talked about reasonable doubt. You've heard me mention that a lot. And as I have been saying throughout my closing argument, if you have a reasonable doubt about the Arvizos, the case is over, because the whole case hinges on them. They have come together. They have compared notes. They have made up stories. They've lied under oath, like they've done for years, and they've been caught at it. You have caught them at it. The instruction reads as follows. A defendant in a criminal action is presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proved. And in a case of reasonable doubt whether his guilt is satisfactorily shown, he is entitled to a verdict of not guilty. This presumption places upon the people the burden of proving him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Why the standard of proof called reasonable doubt? Why? Many legal systems around the world don't have it. Many legal systems around the world don't use juries. They use judges. 1, 2, 3, or more. But our country has a philosophy, and that is we cannot convict people who are innocent. We cannot run the risk, because what happens to them is so harmful, so brutal, so devastating. And what they're trying to do to Michael Jackson is so harmful, so brutal, so potentially devastating to him, that we have a very high standard. It's higher than you find in civil cases where you have disputes over money or over property. If you have any reasonable doubt about this case, about the testimony, about the double talk, the lies, about their past, about their motives, it's over. You must acquit Michael Jackson to follow the law. It's that strict. And you know something? Our system still isn't perfect. You still have examples where, years later, DNA exonerates people who were convicted. They've added up like 130 people the last 10 years who were actually convicted, by juries who meant well, wrongfully, because DNA exonerated them. But nevertheless, we have to have a system. It's the best system in the world. It can't be perfect, because human beings aren't perfect. But it's the best system in the world. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm begging you to honor that principle. Honor that principle of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. He must be acquitted under that standard, with all the problems and falsehoods and issues that I have addressed. They can't overcome them. They can exaggerate. They can dirty up Michael's background. They can fling dirt everywhere. They can expose the fact that he's a human being who has had his problems. They can do whatever they want. But they can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, and they never should have brought it to begin with once they learned who the Arvizos were. These are what we call burdens of proof in our legal system. In a civil case, which is a dispute over money or property, if one side proves by a preponderance of the evidence, that's the standard, that they should prevail, and it's often described in very simple terms. If you have a scale of justice and one side is stronger, is heavier, that side wins. It's called a mere preponderance of evidence. That's enough to bankrupt somebody. That's enough to take away their business. That's enough to leave them penniless. But it's not enough to convict of a crime. We have a higher standard called clear and convincing evidence. I'll give you an example. In some custody disputes, you can take a child away from a parent if you prove, by clear and convincing evidence, that that parent should not have custody, that they have not met the standards our legal system requires for parenting. Clear and convincing evidence alone is not enough to convict in our system. And let me ask you this. Do you think you've seen clear and convincing evidence that the Arvizos are truthful? Are believable? Are honest? Are honorable? Don't have financial motives in this case? Are to be believed and trusted? No. They can't even meet that standard, let alone the highest in our legal system, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. They're not even close. The case shouldn't have been brought. This is just an illustrative aid to further explain reasonable doubt to you and what a high standard it is. If you think somebody may be guilty, it's not enough. If you think perhaps they're guilty, it's not enough. If you suspect they might be guilty, it's not enough. Possibly guilty is not enough. Probably guilty, not enough. Guilty likely, not enough. Guilt highly likely, not enough. It's got to be guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. And ladies and gentlemen, when you get in the jury room, ask yourselves, do we have any reasonable doubts about this family in this case? Any. All it takes is one. The prosecutor has talked to you about circumstantial evidence, okay? There's what is called direct evidence, someone actually watches something. And there's circumstantial evidence, where you're to put the circumstances together and decide what you can infer from the circumstances. Of course, I'm coming to you and saying the same thing. Look at the circumstances of the Arvizos and their past history and their lies and their motives, and I'm saying put those circumstances together to find a reasonable doubt in this case. So what does the instruction say? A finding of guilt as to any crime may not be based on circumstantial evidence unless the proved circumstances are not only 1. Consistent with the theory that the defendant is guilty of the crime, but 2. Cannot be reconciled with any other rational conclusion. Can any of you imagine, within reason, the Arvizos doing what I've told you they're trying to do here? Does it seem rational to you? Does it seem realistic? Is it plausible? Is it likely? Of course it is. Would it be rational to assume, based on all you've heard, that this is a scam by them, and that they are, in fact, con artists, actors and liars? The answer is yes. And if you agree with what I just told you, out the door. If the circumstantial evidence as to any particular count permits two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to the defendant's guilt and the other to his innocence, you must adopt that interpretation that points to the defendant's innocence and reject that interpretation that points to his guilt. This all works in tandem with the proof beyond a reasonable doubt standard. It all works in tandem with the proof beyond a reasonable doubt objective of our system that we protect freedom and liberty and reputation more than we protect money, more than we protect property. It's a strict system of values built into the system, and you must, under this legal standard, throw this case where it belongs, out the door. Now, you were instructed that these alleged crimes by Michael Jackson require that they prove what is called specific intent. In plain language, that he specifically intended to commit certain crimes. I'm going to show you some conspiracy instructions where he has to specifically intend, and they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he specifically intended, 1. To enter into a conspiracy agreement, and 2. To commit false imprisonment, child abduction or extortion on the Arvizos. Okay, so that's what this idea of specific intent essentially means. This is a similar instruction to the ones you just saw. You may not find the defendant guilty of the crimes charged unless the proved circumstances are not only 1. Consistent with the theory that the defendant had the required specific intent or mental state, but 2. Cannot be reconciled with any other rational conclusion. It's a protective mechanism to protect our freedom and our liberty and our reputation from false claims. You've been instructed by Judge Melville. You must follow this to the T. You cannot run roughshod over these instructions. You cannot treat them lightly. If you have another rational explanation for what these people are doing based on their past and their behavior, it's out, all of it. Michael Jackson goes home, where he belongs. Not here. Evidence as to any specific intent or mental state, if it permits two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to the existence of a specific intent or mental state and the other to its absence, you must adopt that interpretation which points to its absence. And as I said to you yesterday, show me any evidence anywhere that Michael Jackson wanted to be in a conspiracy with other alleged felons, none of whom have been charged. None. With all they tell you about Schaffel, Konitzer, Dieter, Garrigus, whatever it is, have any of them been charged with anything? Even a misdemeanor? If not, why did they bring this case against him? Why? Where is the justice? Where is the fairness? Where is it? With these instructions that you're bound to follow, with the instruction that you have another rational explanation, another rational conclusion as to why someone acted a certain way that goes against the concept of guilt, the concept of convicting someone of a crime, with these instructions, which they know about them. Why did they bring this case against Michael Jackson? Because he's a mega celebrity, and they hope they can get away with it. They only have one obstacle left: you. They're hoping you won't follow these instructions, you won't understand these instructions, they won't have any meaning in the jury room, you just won't get it. I don't know what they're thinking. How? With these instructions on the table, in your hands, you've already gotten packets of them. How? If you look at these carefully and look at this evidence, can you convict Michael Jackson of anything? Ladies and gentlemen, you can't. You just can't. The witnesses are preposterous. The perjury is everywhere. The claims are preposterous. None of it works. The only thing they have left is throwing dirt all over the place to see if something sticks. Girly magazines. He's had problems in his personal life. He's been immature and naive, childlike. But remember, their basic claims are that he's akin to a monster, that he would take a cancer-stricken child and look at that person as a target and ply him with alcohol so he can molest him. From what you've seen about Michael Jackson in this trial, does that make sense? If you look deep into your heart, do you think it's even remotely possible that Michael Jackson is constructed that way, is evil in that particular way? Has no conscience? Has no feeling for children? Has no idealism? Isn't childlike? He's really just, it's all Neverland's a ruse for criminal activity? Does what you've seen in this trial reflect that? Is it even possible? It's not. It really is not. And no matter what Mr. Zonin throws around the courtroom, you know what I'm saying is true. And I'm sure it will be a real topic of discussion in the jury room. What is Neverland? Why the music? Why the Disney-like environment? Why the animals? Why do children come from the inner city? Why do sick children come by bus? What goes on? What are his goals? What did he want to accomplish? Is it all just a lure for criminal conduct, a veneer, a big fantasy to lure people in because he's a monster? No, not even close. Might be a good time to stop, Your Honor. Is that all right?
All right, we'll a break.